Legends, we made it to round 2 team list. Very exciting. And I do want to kick it off with a couple of things. The 3 guys on this screen are in their teams, so happy days for that. But what I want to kick it off with is the people that were messaging me saying that certain guys weren't going to make the teams. One of them being Lockie Galvin. Looks like he's actually beat out Aiden Caesar for the 6-7 role. He's playing 6, but yeah, I don't think that really matters. So that was kind of some of the talk preseason. He was their best player on the park in the trials. I kept talking him up. I really do hope a lot of people got on him. I ended up leaving him for this week personally to try and get some of the cash cows in round 1. And I suppose the good thing with Galvin, you can either get him this week if you believe in him as well at the cheap price, or you could wait till probably next week. I think could also work, right? If this is exactly how it pans out and he is the guy going forward, we also could be a good way to see how things go. But if you did start with him, you've absolutely got a big win with Lockie Galvin. Number 2 that people were in my DMs and messaging on, commenting on YouTube about was that of Nick Kotrick, and the fact that he was, yes, a great guy to have in your side, and he's out of the side as well. So they were the 2 that I wanted to kick off with, just so everyone does hear it, and just, obviously when you're in the comments, guys, just be aware that these things can go wrong, and there was lots and lots of merit for both of those 2 to come out on that side. Lockie Galvin doesn't really affect too much, apart from people in the good way. Kotrick, if you do own him, it is frustrating, obviously, and the good thing is he's very cheap, but that was the risk, unfortunately, and he has missed out on that side, sadly, in that one there. So yeah, I suppose at worst he's cover, but if hopefully he wasn't as a starter in your side. But I suppose there are guys to pivot to, and this team list is pretty crazy because there's actually so many options this week. This is a week where you want lots and lots of trades. I probably want 3 or 4. 4 sounds good to me this week. It's not going to happen, but I suppose that's where that round 1 team and getting that right was very, very helpful for our sides. That's for sure. If you're able to get things right and 2 trades is kind of all you need, then awesome. I do think most people will make some trades in this week, but it does kick off with the Bunnies, and we have to talk about it. Tallis Duncan, he's made it into the starting side on the edge. So the talk was with him that in the preseason that he was training on an edge, and that could be the way they went with it. And then the other talk came out that he wasn't actually training much on the edge. Maybe that's been dispelled, that he's actually got that opportunity to start there. And you do look at their bench guys, and it's Havili, Moale, Shaq Mitchell, and Tom Burgess, who are all middle. So I think you can expect pretty big minutes from Tallis, and he becomes an interesting pick to buy in this week. And we've got a couple of videos where we'll go through sort of buy, hold, risk, it sells, which will be cool. And I'll give you my further thoughts on and deeper dive analysis into a few of these guys and what we can expect from certain individual players. But looking at that bench, it's middles. So again, expect some big minutes out of Cook. Expect decent minutes out of Tallis. It's probably closer to the 60 mark, 55 to 60, but that'd be enough to make some money for sure, with Cam Murray spelling him for a little bit. And all these guys to play sort of solid minutes through the middle with the rest of the minutes available. Thankfully, Jake Gagai is still in this team, but guys, it is Jack White that returns in round 3. So we will find out in round 3 what happens with Kenner, what happens with Gagai as well. It's been, by the time this comes around, it'll be almost 2 weeks since that game that they both played in Vegas there. Latrell's there. Tavita Tola gets his opportunity again. I suppose the only real change to that bench, guys, is Shaq Mitchell in there. And Jacob Host is actually completely out of this side. So that's something to note as well, that he's out. I'm not sure if there's any injury or anything. Let me know, guys, if there was an injury to Host or if he's just been dropped completely, because he's not in the reserves either, which I would have thought that he would make the reserves. So please let me know if you do know anything on Hosty in this one here. It's that's probably the only slight worry with Tallis. If there's something like he's just out for a week and then Host comes back and he could come in and start. But I do think with Arrow being out, we aren't sure right now how long he's going to be out for. Initial reports say that it could be anywhere between 4 to 6 weeks. And if it's really bad and he has to have surgery, which we'll find out more information on, then it could be a 4-month plus recovery and probably missing a lot of the season. So I think that's enough anyway for Tallis. And if you own Cam Murray, I don't think this interchange mucks things around too much for you. Obviously, another injury in the forwards just means big minutes are going to have to be taken by someone else, and he'll stick with his really good role. Latrell, obviously a really good purchase, guys, as well, so you can have a look at him if you want to. For the Broncos, the big news there, guys, is that Brennan Piakura is named to start. So it sounds like he's tracking well, and that means that he will be, if all goes well with him being named, mean that he's within the protocol, the time allowed to make sure that he's back and playing, and which means I think we'll obviously keep him in our sides. He's too cheap anyway, and I think you start him if he gets the opportunity. This will mean Keon's going to be on the left, isn't he? Yeah, that's right. So Tallis Duncan will be on the right, which makes it a little bit interesting and better for Piakura that we get a new young fella on that edge rather than a hardened defensive player in Jairo. So I think you're definitely playing Piakura if he gets the opportunity to play. And thankfully for us, it is the first game of the round. Very good news at that. Jesse Arthurs keeps his spot, so hopefully for owners he keeps making money. Dean Mariner as well, probably need a bigger game from him at the price point that you've got for him. And then Reece Walsh should continue to do well in that one. Jensen gets to start, potentially. Yeah, it might happen again where Tapaug ends up starting. Jensen off the bench playing some good minutes. But again, don't expect 70 minutes from Payne Haas in this one. Don't expect 55 from Jensen. Expect them to drop back a little bit from there. So that's the first game of the round, guys. Let's move on to Sharkies and the Doggies. So a little bit has changed with the Dogs. Kiraz stays as centre, thank goodness. Blake Taft's still in the one position with Connor Tracy being put on the wing. So I wonder if anything changes in that back five come game day. But at the moment, you've got Tracy moving into Adokar's wing spot. It looks like he's going to be out for sort of a 3 to 4 week type of range. In the forwards, nothing changes there with Salmon still in the 13. Things could change come game day, but at the moment it's sticking solid. And what we're looking at here is Farmasili still in that starting spot. Josh Curran obviously made some money and scored really well. Does he continue with big minutes? And I think you could probably watch for one more week and to see if that's going to be the case, if Kurt Mann's going to be playing 50-odd minutes as well, and see if the Dogs can actually play a bit better than they did, because it was a bit of a shit show, just the way that it played out with the injury and how they played and the flow of it. Eels are pretty good. A few things happened there, obviously. And on the other side of the ball, you've got the Sharkies there, and nothing changes for them. So Trindle and Hines are there. You've got Toby Rudolph in the start. Is probably the only change there for Royce Hunt, with the same full forwards on the bench. You probably want them as like a Cam McInnes owner. You want them to change things up a little bit, give him an opportunity to play some bigger minutes, and maybe he does that this week. We'll analyze him in a little bit more detail in tomorrow's videos. But for Cam there, I definitely think this could be a bounce back game for him. You don't expect 40 minutes at all from Cam. It was, to bring him back that late and take him off that early, just not the usual, unfortunately. I think, they were lacking in big bopper middles and, against that massive pack. But against this Dogs pack, it might just be worth just getting him in there, doing his work, and the other guys can come on fresh and play some smaller minutes for sure. But, that's probably all they've got on the Sharkies. Expect them to do pretty well in this game. Panthers come up against the Eels, guys. This is always a really, really fun matchup. It's always very, very close. And, two teams that are going to match up really well against each other. I still think you can safely stick the C on Nathan Cleary in this one. We do see Scott Sorensen returning, which is great. And if you're looking to buy him, don't to start with. He'll play sort of 60 minutes, you'd imagine. Garner can come on and spell him. Liam Henry keeps the bench spot, which is pretty cool as well, with Eisenhuth the one making way. And we thought that'd be the case given the minutes that they both played in last game, with Henry sort of playing that 35 and getting 32 points. He did a really good job. Sonny Luke maintains his spot in the 14 role, and we don't see Tyrone Peachy after featuring there in the 18 role. Luke Somerton makes way out of this side, and we'll have to see if Sonny ends up playing, what type of minutes he plays, and if he plays much at all, given Kenny is a really important player for them and has played some big minutes across the last season really, and played the full 80 in the World Club Challenge. So that's the Panthers. Not too much to say other than the top tier guns of Isaiah Yeo. Do you look to bring in a Taylor May, obviously with a lower break even, scoring really, really well. Comes up against the fun side of Cartwright Penasini, which will be interesting for sure. I can't wait to watch that matchup on Friday evening. So, Eels side of things, it's Penasini is the gun there in the back line. Moses, if you got him, you're holding on steady, I think. A few people have asked me, can I move him on? Yes, the break-even's higher, but he should still be able to score pretty well. Imagine some big kick meters. If his groin is fine, he's come out and said it was a precaution and that he will be fine for this week. So, see if that is actually the case. and make your decisions from there with other guys. I think there's a lot of cheapies available this week, cheaper guys, that Moses being sold is probably not the play, but we will find out, and we'll see if that is actually the way to go about it in this one here. But on the forward side, Lussick and Hand still remain interchange exactly the same. Sean Lane played massive minutes. Cartwright went off under 70 minutes, and maybe that's the way they go for it. Hopefully a bit of a bounce back from Sean Lane in this one here. So that's that, I think, with those two teams. Not too much else to say. For the Raiders and the Tigers, this is where things change, right? So for the Raiders in their backline, Rapana maintains that spot. And I think that, again, if everything's true from what we've heard in the preseason, that he's going to stick there for a little bit before we see Chevy Stewart come in. And it looks like Chevy played really, really well on the weekend. And they'll stick with this until that they think Chevy's ready. And he'll come in and slot in, and then Raps will go onto the wing for either Hopewadi or Savage, who both played solid on the weekend. Weird that Hopper played sort of the centre role and then now moves to the wing with Kotrick missing out. But I suppose like Albert played really well last year, and this was probably expected. But Seb Chris moves into that left centre role, which is going to be fun for him. And those that bought him to start in round one, they are rewarded with him being named in the centres where he does score better, which is great. I do think that Ethan Strange is a pretty solid one to play this week, and I think I might have to myself, depending on the trades that I'm looking at. But Ethan Strange, excited to see how he goes against I suppose he's going to come up against like Isaiah Papali'i, so that's going to be a fun one to tackle. He had Tyson Frizzell last week, but against a slightly lesser side than what you would expect Knights to be. Can Strangey put on a bit of a show and actually get some type of try assist, especially playing next to Hudson Young and now Seb Chris, which makes it a little bit more fun, that's for sure. And we'll get to the buys on the other side in a second, but Morgan Smithies and Hosking both keep their roles. The bench stays exactly the same with Mariota, Gula, Solo there, and Tom Starling with Weeks still in the 19 jersey, Kotrick in the 18. Could obviously be changes late, but he'll be thereabouts, but just depends what happens eventually with Chevy as to how far Kotrick goes down the list. Publicly, you expect the 40 minutes again. Taps did really well. All awesome purchases. Do you look to buy Hosking or Smithies this week? It probably is definitely the last chance to do so. I'm not sure if it is the correct play though, given we get Horsburgh back next week and we get Elliot Whitehead soon. Whitehead's not in the frame yet. Take your pick if you do want to get one of those guys, but I do think there's some other options as we just spoke about earlier. For the Tigers, guys, we got Fa'atape. He ended up earning the spot. We weren't sure if it was going to be the case, but he's at that center spot. We don't see Justin Olam yet, so maybe there's something wrong, and hopefully we do hear something about it, but hold on. Justin Olam sidelined by a knee injury. Okay, so maybe it is a 1 week thing. We'll find out. He's Fa'atape is on the development contract, which is interesting for sure. John Bateman lines up. They've got John Bateman lining up at lock, which is incorrect. He lines up on the edge. So thank you for that. But Galvin there at agency, he's on the bench. There's some talk about him having a groin issue. I'm not sure if that's the case. It could just be a 1 week thing, but I do think if Galvin plays well, he'll keep that spot. That's for sure. So very, very fun. That one there with Galvin, as we spoke about at the top of the show. Fa'atape and Galvin, the new guys, both cheap. I think that Galvin is the one you would look to purchase over Solomona. At this point, you can watch Solomona and make some decisions. If you do need a wing fullback or a center, I'm not sure what he is in the game, actually. We'll find out in a sec. So I'll just look at it now, to be honest with you, while we're here. So Fa'atape, is he actually in the game? No, he's not in the game yet. So didn't end up being the case yet. So he'll be in the game shortly. And we'll find out. If he's not in the game yet, he'll come in as the center, which could help or could hinder. Not sure how it's going to work out for you guys, but that's what we're looking at with the Tigers at the moment. Is that Galvin's the guy. You could pick him next week. This week's fine too. If you own him already, awesome. Do you play him? That's the question. Probably worth a watch, but I do think he's a good player. Seyfarth gets the 13. Samuela Fainu on the bench with Fanua Pole. Seyfarth's another guy that I was looking at, obviously, and he could be an option over the next few weeks. You could buy him now if you started with him. Awesome. He got the 13. Expect 50 minutes, you'd imagine, in this setup here. With Caesar being the 14, maybe he can play. He's kind of come on and play some 13 as well, or maybe he comes on a hooker and spells Coruscant as well. There's a few question marks over this Tigers team, which I think will be answered this week, and maybe you can watch it all happen, and then you can react accordingly. So that's potentially an option. You could also just take the punt on one or two of them, but it is the Tigers, and just be aware that it is the Tigers. and issues could present themselves, but they could come out and be really good as well. So there's no Simkin, there's no Talon de Silva, so that it does spell good signs for Appy that he'll play close to 80 minutes, but we will find out on the weekend. Isaiah Papali'i, John Bateman, also really, really good options. I think they were both a little bit under what their potential is and what their scoring should be from last year. And could definitely do well and better this year, I think. But Bateman coming off, not much of a preseason, it seems like. Probably worth waiting on him. Isaiah Papali'i is more chance, I think, of dominating from the jump. Suppose you had to mention Danny Levi as well. It was just a cork, it seems like, so I don't have any reason here to see that he wouldn't be starting. And big minutes again, could do really well, could do poorly as well. All right, Cows Knights for your 5:30 game. Very excited to watch this one, especially with the talent on offer. Things stay the same for the Cows in their list there. Obviously, Val Holmes, Labart, Drinkwater, all terrific options in your teams. Tamalolo will start again. Potentially will play some more minutes, guys. The bench looks exactly the same. Lukey, hopefully he can get that 65, would be good. Hopefully some bigger minutes for Cotter if you do decide to hold on to him. Lukey's the guy to definitely hold on to, given he made money last week, and he will continue to do so until he hits sort of a sub 30 game, which we hope is not the case, right? That's where we're at with that team there. And then, so you're looking at the bench being the same. Tamalolo, if you do own him, I think it's a worry. I think you probably have to sell, given the fact that there's a lot of cheaper options available, and he is the guy to get less minutes if they're up and doing really well. Robson was a great 9 option for the week as well. For the Knights, guys, Ponga, expect the bounce back. I wouldn't be selling him. No way in the world. Tyson Frizzell keeps his edge. Dylan Lucas failed his HIA, guys, and I think he might have a broken nose, but I do think they're very sort of quick recoveries on the broken nose front. Kaipi Paul gets the spot. I think he's very much a clear option in Supercoach. Less of an option in fantasy, although he could come out and score a try and hit a 60 plus, and then you go, oh, well, at 520 or whatever, what's he going to be? 520? Something like that. He was 520. I can't remember what happened after the change from the weekend, but he could be really damaging and do a great job. They have Jed Cartwright, the man that's in everyone's team who made a squad early, ends up on the interchange bench, and he will cover a little bit of Kaipi's Paul. So don't expect a full 80 from him, but anywhere around the 60 mark is massive, and he could score really, really well. Crossland, Elliott. If you started with Crossland, it's big minutes expected again. I'm not sure. I might play a little bit less just with the way that they've got things going on. I don't think he has to play huge minutes. Elliott, expect a decent score again, but I think he's one that you could sacrifice if you need extra cash available to get the Terrell Mays and these types of guys who we haven't even spoken about yet. And there's so many options. We go to Storm and the Warriors, guys. So on this front here, you have Pap still there, which is good. Jonah Pezzett, guys, is actually an interesting one because he's someone that looks like he's going to get this spot potentially a little bit longer term. And when I say that, it could be like a few more weeks. The Munster thing is really, really worrying. It sounds like he's good to go, like running wise one day, and then the next day he's not, and they just don't know what's going on. And his body language, his talk, Bellamy's chat didn't sound great at all on that front. So I think while Pezzett's doing well, there will be no reason to try and play Munster early on, especially. So yeah, definitely a worry. And Pezzett, he should score pretty well. Like he scored well last week against a really good team in the Panthers. They've got a good team again in the Waz. So yeah, I don't think he's a buy. I just think there's other purchases just because he's an awkward price and there's so many other purchases. But I do think he'll make some money and do a good job. Harry Grant, let's expect a bigger game for him this week. Joe Chan maintains his spot in the 17 in the starting side anyway. And their bench maintains being the same with Blore and Bradley in 18 and 19 again. I suppose there'd be no reason to change what a good formula is. And happy days with Chan. Hopefully he does score a little bit better in the minutes that he was provided as a nice cash cow, whether he's in your starting 17 in your fantasy squad or he's a bench guy. Hopefully he does well. And hopefully a bit of a bounce back from Pap as well. I do expect a better game, and this could be the one. There might be a few people looking to sell him. I do think it's probably a mistake at this point to sell him. I think if you were going to avoid it was from round one. Now I think you just hold all the way through. That's probably all we need to say on the Storm. Obviously, Eli Katoa is a cracking purchase for the first bunch of weeks. He's going to get price rises, I think, and average somewhere near the 50 mark For the Wars, Taintul Piki keeps his spot. We don't see Chance in Nickel Klukstad any closer to this team. I do have Chanel Harris-Tavita and Tamati Martin in the reserves, which they were last week as well, I believe. Yeah. And for those guys, you're looking at if Wade Egan isn't ready. It sounds like it wasn't going to be a good injury. And similar to that with Capewell, there was some worries about both of those guys not making this squad. It looks like with no like Jacob Laban on the reserves guys, that it seems like Kurt Capewell will be fine and not a worry as a non-player this week. Do expect Tohu Harris to hit big minutes again and score really, really well if you're potentially looking at him. But if you do have Roger, hold steady, I think, with him. He had obviously a very base stat heavy week, and we'll see it could be the same again. Taintul Piki, let's see how he goes against a really, really good defensive outfit in the Storm, keeping the Panthers to 0. That's for sure. And in the forwards, that's not too much else to say on that squad. Let's go to the last few games of the round there, guys, with the Eagles and the Roosters on their Sunday afternoon game. Okay, so 4 p.m. is the first game on Sunday, which will be fun. And you do have Tom Trbojevic. It's going to be hard to pick him up, I think, just with all the cheapy options available. And I suppose up against the Roosters, it could be a tougher attacking assignment for him. We see Tommy Talau get the wing spot, and that was expected as well after hearing that he'd been told that he's going to be a winger this year. So, next up, mentality. Vega was the other option, but Tommy, I think, has more upside. So they've gone with him there. He looked pretty good in the trials. So if you do need a cheapy outside back, he's one to look at. I do think it's probably worth waiting a week, but I expect him to score better this year than last year, and that's not hard to do, that's for sure. But Garrick stays in the centres, also scored really well last week. Expect him to be good on a regular basis, but he is up against some tough, centre pairings, and it's going to be on the right side for him being Suali'i on the left with Daniel Tupou as well. So that'll be a pretty tough, outside backs to get through. Tough edge to get through, I should say. And then you've got Brooksy, DCE. A lot of the top teams have Brooksy, so good on them. At the moment, Ben Trbojevic keeps his spot. He doesn't really have anyone to take minutes off him, given it's the same interchange as last week, just Saab being the one that misses out, unfortunately. So, that's the side for the Manly boys. Not too much else to say, I don't think, given they're still a few weeks away from Sipley and then Lodge and the like from there. Sharon Woods on the bench. Good on him in the reserves. For the Roosters, again, not a lot changes. We have Hargraves coming in, Spencer Leniu coming out. The rest of the team, Siwa Wong, awesome, he's named. He's good to go. We knew that was going to be the case. Satili Tupanua, for those that have him, obviously, which is a lot of people, he has been named. Does he get used as a trade chip? It's likely that could be the case in my side. We will have to wait and see how that one goes. But potentially is the way I'll be going. It's just that awkward sort of price. There's a lot of options around here. Do you, how do you get to some certain guys? I suppose is the question. Do you use him to go to Terrell May? I know a lot of people are doing that already. He's been named. It's going to be the same interchange. I think White's going to be the guy to play less minutes again. Terrell, expect him to do really well minutes-wise again, and expect Sandon and also Brandon to share some minutes. Whether it's a few extra from Brandon this week, it's the same. He's been named again, and I don't think anything changes with this side. It's just, the edge guys, Wong, Tupanua, do they get more minutes than what they ended up with last week? Obviously, Tupanua getting 43. You do expect him to play more. You do expect Victor Radley to be spelled. Maybe that's where a couple of the minutes go to Tupanua and Collins. And I don't expect too much to change. Maybe Butcher plays a few less minutes off the interchange bench. So maybe that's how they play it to cover for sort of Wong and Tupanua getting a few extra minutes. But how you want to play that, completely up to you. And then Dolphins and the Dragons, guys. For the Finns, we do see... I actually didn't notice that. Holy moly. Okay. That's the only one I forgot to notice from this team was that... Wow. Okay. Tessie Niu. Punted. Wow. Okay. Tessie's gone. I didn't notice that when I looked at it just before I jumped on. Jake Averillo has been named in the centres. I don't think that part coming in is going to be too big of a deal. But the fact that Tessie Niu's gone and he was fairly highly owned as well is massive, massive news, especially if you're holding Keeney as well. Then you'll have to bring in a wing fullback or a centre most likely. So that's big news. And I think that, wielding the axe, he completely did Wayne Bennett because Tessie Niu's gone. Bostock keeps his spot, which is fair enough. And Isaiah Katoa comes in for Sean O'Sullivan. So I did see a few people that did pick up Sean. It wasn't a lot, but there are a few people out there that grabbed Sean, who's scored okay fantasy wise, but obviously the leader of this team in the halves, he loses his spot. So that's that on that front. Isaiah Katoa comes in. I don't think we look at selecting him, but he'll do a lot of the kick meters. Probably gives Cody Nikorima a bit more freedom to play his game as well, and this will be a really fun game, I think, for him. The big news here, guys, is obviously Flegler. If you're looking at him, definitely not pushing you away. Ewan Aiken is the next one on the list, guys, given it does sound like Lemuelu could be out for sort of a month at this point. So in that case, you get 3 weeks minimum out of Aiken, but not great considering Lemuelu is coming off a knee injury and he's just picked up another one. So maybe he gets brought back off the bench or through New South Wales Cup for a game now that he's had a couple of injuries, and Aiken keeps his spot longer term. He's a great buy, but obviously a buy for the Dolphins next week means it's not a rush on Aiken, but do expect, if you do pick him up, that he will score well for your side this week and then for the weeks after. And does he get missed tackles against, is he going to be Sua? Not sure. Which team? Which side are they going to play, these guys? Eisenhuth, Raymond Faitala-Mariner. He played the edge last week. They've got Lucio Liu coming off the bench as well. So I don't expect these guys to play huge minutes, and it's a very interesting one at that. But anyway, we'll get to that. Aiken will score well regardless of who he's up against. Max Plath comes into the 13. Ray Stone did fail his HIA, so expect Plath to play pretty decent minutes. And we know that he will be a guy that scores really well. He's one I think you can watch again. And then if he is actually named ahead, like starting ahead of Ray Stone in round 4, he could be one to look at, but he's a very, very awkward price in the 500s as well. I'd rather be picking Ewan Aiken, who we can select in our centres, over someone like a Maxi Plath at a similar price. So that's that. The bench is Kerr, Bromwich, Nichols, and Wallace for Middle's bench, which means that Plath, it's going to be hard to see him play more than 50 minutes. Flegler, I think, will maintain the same. Bromwich will have some slightly lower minutes, and maybe it's lower minutes for all these bench guys as well. So that's where we're at there. O'Sullivan and Tessinu being dropped. Very, very big news. For the Dragons, their back 7 stays the same. A few people I've seen have asked, like, can I trade Sully? I think Sully's ready for a breakout year. The way that they used him, obviously for 210 run meters, he will get attacking stats out of that, and his 33 will get into the 40s very, very easily. So I think Sully's a great starting pick. I'm very happy in my head-to-head team starting with Sully, and I think you should be as well if you did start with him. Flanagan as well. Yes, scored a try with his 36, but I think he'll have pretty good stats across the board. Some games he'll have like a mid-20s, and other games he'll get in the 40s if he gets try assists and the like to his left-hand side with Ravalawa and Sully. But a lot of it was down the right-hand side with with Sloan, with Lomax, and a bit of Bird, right? So Bird is the word. That's where we're at with Flanagan. Hold steady with him, I think, unless you go, I don't really like it, and he can go to Tallis Duncan, the safe us, and like, okay, I understand if you want to do that. I'm not all for it, but you could. For the forwards, we're looking at some, the Eisenhuth there. He's on the edge spot. Laurie is back. DeBellin in the 13. They've still got Mullisen. I think Little's a solid option, guys. Does he get the huge minutes again? I'm not sure, but he looked really, really good. Faitala-Mariner and Luciano Leilua on the interchange. It's hard to see huge minutes because they're big minute guys, and then you've got Eisenhuth, Sewer, and DeBellin. Laurie coming back. Does he play lower minutes here? There's a lot of these guys that I feel like they're all going to cannibalize each other. Who's going to get the 60 minutes? Is it Eisenhuth? If Raymond Faitala-Mariner was going to be there in that spot, then maybe that would have helped. But with Luciano back, Raymond on the bench, I think they're all going to play sort of 50 odd minutes, and none of them being tremendous buys. I think you can wait maybe one more week. It is hard though with like the mid 400s for Raymond and Tom Eisenhuth to see how the minutes go for him, and obviously the price rises will come 2 weeks in a row now. It'd be hard to wait that third, but they might be guys that you have to let through the keeper. And Harmsele is in the reserves there with Viliami Fafita as well, which is what we expected, but Harmsele needs to come back into this side as well. And where does he fit, I suppose, is the big question mark. Is it maybe Michael Molo that leaves this side? It's a pretty good forward pack now. Like, to be honest, felt like they were struggling a bit in forwards, and especially in the back end of last year, but they've come back with a bang, and they look like they're in a really good position, guys. So that's the team list for round 2. There is so many options, and I suppose, again, we could be double trading for a while now, and you just got to decide which avenue you want to go. Do you want to go for clear points this week and go for Aiken, or go up top to Harris and these type of guns, or do you want to go a little bit cheaper in the mid 300s, the Lockie Galvins at 230? There are lots of options, lots of ways you can go, and I suppose just making sure that the guys you are trading at are sort of guys that you find that aren't going to be making money, they're clearly expendable, or you're just done with them after 1 week, and that's completely fine too if that's the way you want to play it. So thanks for being here, guys, and we'll got a plenty of videos tomorrow coming out around the buy, hold, risk it sells and head-to-head theory and all this kind of stuff, which will be fun. So we'll see you in those ones, and have a good night watching this.